Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Clearwater County's regular council meeting for the 11th of April, 2023. There is actually, I should remind everybody that all public meetings are live streamed and recorded. Any verbal or written information provided may be included in public documents as per the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, FOIP 40-1. I trust everyone had a great Easter weekend and had an opportunity to seek what you wanted to find and share with family. It's always great to have these moments just as spring is on the doorstep. With that, we've had an agenda that has been circulated. Would there be any additions or deletions to that agenda? Seeing none, I would look for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Cermak caught my eye the first. All those in favor? And that is carried. As well, the minutes from the regular council meeting of the 28th of March were circulated. Were there any errors or omissions in that? Councillor Graham?
Just one error. It was the resident. We have Jim Duncan instead of Earl Graham.
Correct. I think, I think
Okay.
Tracy's ahead of us on that already. So with that amendment, then would there be anybody willing to make the motion to adopt those minutes? I think Councillor Swanson was first. Everybody wants to be first. That's good. All those in favor? And that's carried. That brings us down on the agenda to item 4.1, and that's first reading of bylaw 1141/23 for application number 0223 to amend the land use bylaw. And again, I think we see familiar faces around the room, but perhaps we'll do a round of introductions and start with Councillor Graham, please.
Good morning, Sydney Graham, Councillor for Division 2.
Good morning, Jordan Northcott, Division 4 Councillor.
Welcome, Jenny Melhoff, Division 1 Councillor and Deputy Reeve.
Good morning, Darrell Lougheed, Councillor for Division 3 and Reeve.
Welcome again, Neil Ratcliffe, Councillor for Division 5.
Good morning, Brian Cermak, Councillor for Division 6.
Good morning, Councillor for Division 7, Michelle Swanson.
Good morning, Murray Hagan, Director of Corporate Services.
Good morning, Kim Gillum, Acting Director.
Good morning, Rick Emmons, CAO.
Morning, Adrian Clark, Planning Intern.
Okay, so, oh, sorry, folks, go ahead.
Morning, Rudy Radulov.
And Cody Stewart.
Well, again, welcome and thanks for joining us today. I'll turn the floor across to Mr. Clark to introduce this item, I believe.
Morning, thank you, Reeve Lougheed. Morning, Council. Before you, we have application. Rudy Roloff and Cody Stewart of Proactive Adventures Limited holds title to Plan 892-215 Lot 1, which is part of Southeast 1935-8 west of the 5th, containing approximately 94.22 acres. The property
Well, welcome back, everyone. I hear our voices going out, so this is a good thing. Thanks for being patient as we work through our technical difficulties. So we had a presentation by Mr. Clark. I would look to council if they had any questions for the development officer. Okay. Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Are we good to ask questions, or are you?
Yes,
Yeah?
I wasn't able to say the last, but just for the persons who may not have heard, the overall application is just to redesignate 6 acres from recreational facility back to agriculture and to turn the land back to what it was naturally being used for. So that's the overall intent of the application for the persons who missed. Okay.
Perfect, thank you. One of the previous concerns was this road.
Yes.
And doing any type of development with this road. Is there any unintended consequences of us changing it back to agriculture? Or is this if you leave it how it is and don't touch any of the zoning and development permits, et cetera, we don't have to change the road. But if you change anything, zoning, permits, anything, that we have to change it. So is there any unintended consequences of doing this?
Currently there is no unintended consequences of switching it back to ag because that's what it was originally zoned as. So going back to what its original zoning would not affect what is any future endeavors that may occur. So I don't see any consequences of going back to what it was originally zoned as.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? I guess sorry, go ahead, Deputy
Sorry.
Reeve Melhoff.
Sorry, I thought that there was other people that had lights on, so. My other one was, is that a primary and a secondary residence? Or is those, because they're not cut out in the picture? So the group to the
The northeast.
east and the southeast?
Yes. So yes, those are 2 residences. On an ag parcel, you are allowed to have 2 residences over 80 acres.
Yeah.
So 2 residences are allowed, but to my knowledge, one of the residences is currently not being occupied or being used.
Okay, and then this little piece right there, what is
Yes.
that? In the far north,
North.
beside the river, there's like a triangle piece cut out?
Yes,
What is
that's within that should be in the reserve, environmental reserve. But to my knowledge, that is not part of the overall 94 acres.
Okay,
That's separate from the 94 acres.
okay, thank you.
Okay, any additional questions? One I would have, at some point in the future then, the boundaries we see on the map would cease to exist. It would just become one absorbed, that parcel would be absorbed into the greater, once we redistrict this.
Yes. So the red area was not subdivided out. It was only spot zoned. That area was only rezoned, so it'd be going back. So there would be, essentially, yes, it will be absorbed
Okay,
back into the title.
okay, thank you. Any additional questions? I'd be looking for a motion then. Councillor Northcott, please.
I do have a question just for the the actual state of the property itself. Looks like a lot of that is there a lot of gravel in there right now, or that's been placed in that property?
Currently, I'm not able to answer.
I'm just looking at the aerial, like this picture here, it looks like there's a lot of gravel pads there.
If you'd like to share a bit about your property, that would be great.
I can answer to that. Yes, there was, when Mr. McMoron did this, he did bring in gravel. I have been talking with Mr. Ammons from planning, and part of that is once this is rezoned back to ag, we are looking at the remediation, I guess would be the word, to pull out an abandoned park model, a fifth wheel that it was abandoned on the property. I believe planning got a notification from the fifth wheel owner that it is abandoned and that they can dispose of it accordingly. And then it'll be looking at doing what we can to bring it back to its original state. And one of the other things that we're looking at doing is there's a lot of what have become old growth trees on the property that are about 90, 100 feet high. And we're looking at taking them down so that that 6 acre piece will basically become part of the existing field that is there. You know, this is kind of a multi-pronged approach for Cody and I on how we deal with the cleanup from what has gone on. There is, currently we've talked to Blue Mountain. They are scheduled to come out later in the summer when the frost and everything's out of the ground to pull out the 6 poles that are there, 4 transformers that were put in to run a pump house up at the far end. Anyways, there's still a fair bit of work to do, and this getting it rezoned agricultural is to ensure that this kind of thing never happens again. You know, like we are the stewards of the property, and we want to steward it in a way that is within accordance to all of the county guidelines. And, you know, we're looking at, you know, opportunities that how we can best use that property as stewards that will be a benefit to the county, not a hindrance and a bone of contention like it has been over the last few years. You know, like sitting here listening to Mr. Clark going through the history of the property, quite frankly, just incenses me. Because everybody that was involved in this, not just us, but all of the people that took a 99-year lease on good faith, were lied to right from the very beginning. You know, Mr. McMorrin was told no, and like a little rebellious kid, just carried on anyways, and has now cost the county, I don't even want to know what the money value is, and has cost us.
Okay, I appreciate your comments. Deputy or Councillor Northcott, please.
Okay, thank you for the information. I know that every application and every, you know, they are all unique to one another, but is there, I guess this is a question for planning, but is there a way to conditionally, like, would there be able to put a condition for approval or a time frame? Just it would be nice to be able to see prior to applications coming into rezone property if they were actually in an agricultural state to be applied for, so that it.
And it may very well be something that would be held up within the public hearing if we had concerns with that. I imagine there would be an opportunity to, but I'll let Mr. Clark describe the next steps as well, so.
Then I would like to pass that off to
Ms. Gillum?
Ms. Gillum.
Yeah, so we don't put conditions on land use amendments if there was a subdivision stage. I don't think it's necessary for this, like, you're like speaking to the remediation side of things. I think at this stage, we are so far into the legal process that that's being dealt with other ways, yeah. And so the land use amendment is to revert it back, which really theoretically should have been done in the 80s. So it's just kind of putting it back to what it was originally. And I think there's other ways to deal with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Graham.
I don't have any questions. I'd like to make a motion that council grants first reading to bylaw 1141/23 and proceeds to a public hearing.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I will call a question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll probably see you in the distant future for a public hearing as well. So that takes us down the agenda to item 4.2. Which is first reading of bylaw 1142/23 for application number 0323 to amend the land use bylaw. And again, welcome this morning. We'll maybe start with a quick round of introductions again. I'll go to Councillor Graham first.
Hello, I'm Sydney Graham, Councillor for Division 2.
Good morning, Jordan Northcott, Division 4, Councillor.
Welcome, Jenny Melhoff, Division 1, and Deputy Reeve.
Good morning, Darrell Lougheed, Councillor for Division 3 and Reeve.
Good morning, Neil Ratcliffe, Councillor for Division 5.
Good morning, Brian Cermak, Councillor for Division 6.
Hello, Division 7 Councillor Michelle Swanson.
Good morning, Murray Hagan, Director of Corporate Services.
Good morning, Kim Gillum, Acting Director of Planning and Development.
Good morning, Rick Emmons, CEO.
Morning, Adrian Clark, Planning Intern.
And if you would introduce yourself.
Good morning, I'm James Fuser from the James River Bridge Store.
Okay. Well, welcome, and I shall turn the floor across to Mr. Clark to introduce this item, please.
Good morning again, Council. Thank you, Reeve Lougheed. Numbered Company 1516367 Alberta Limited holds title to a plan to part of Southwest 2734-5 West of the 5th, containing approximately 0.93 acres. Harry and Joan Blanchard currently holds title to the remainder of the quarter section, Southwest 2734-5 West of the 5th, containing approximately 156 acres. The subject land is located approximately 15 miles southwest of the village of Caroline. Beminco Land Surveying Limited, on behalf of Numbered Company 1516367 Alberta Limited, with the support of Harry and Joan Blanchard, has made application to redesignate 0.55 acres of the quarter section from the agricultural district to highway development district, with a combined boundary adjustment to expand the existing 0.93 acres highway development parcel for the purpose of providing adequate parking, safe access and egress to the existing businesses and to one day provide future EV charging sites. The existing highway development parcel of land is located at the junction of Highway 587 and Range Road 5-3. The property is accessed via Highway 587 adjacent to the south property boundary. The property contains 7,200 square foot building known as James River Store, a 1,008 square foot addition to the James River Store was also done. 4,320 square foot quantity, 820 square foot building where Armis Plus business operates out of a modular aqua trailer on the property. There is also a 124 square foot auxiliary building encroaching on the property adjacent to the north property boundary, and a 160 square foot auxiliary building encroaching on the municipal road allowance adjacent to the west property boundary. Both of which will need to be moved or removed to be in compliance with the land use bylaw. James River Store has legally operated for approximately 38 years, and the addition to the James River Store and the RMS Plus business and the remaining buildings do not have development approval. The landowner has initiated the process for the development approval of these uses, which will be a condition of the subdivision endorsement. The surrounding land uses in the area is mainly agricultural with some residential parcels located in the immediate area. The attached package provides more details on the proposed development, and the landowner will be present to speak to the proposal. Therefore, this application to redesignate the vacant subject land containing 0.55 acres of Southwest 2734-5 West of the 5th to Highway Development District, as shown on Schedule A of this bylaw. Planning direction, Municipal Development Plan, Guiding Principle 3.2.3 covers the land use compatibility. Guiding Principle 3.2.5, encourage diversification of local economy. 4.2.4, evaluating subdivision and development approval, that the affected agricultural lands, the agricultural quality is one of those factors that the county shall consider. These factors also include the nature of the extent of farming activities in the local area, the location, number of existing planned non-farming uses in the area, the farm assessment rating of the land, adjacent lands. 8.1.2, promote the local appropriate economic development activities that enhance and diversify the economy. 8.2.1, Clearwater County encourages the retention and expansion of existing business and industry and attraction of new businesses and industry to diversify the economy. 8.2.3, county shall provide a variety of commercial and industrial land uses. 11.2.21, the county has the right to ask for an ASP or outline plan. 11.2.2 covers the criteria of what the ASP or outline plan may address. 12.2.2, how to implement the plan. 12.2.3, county may require the applicant to prepared by a qualified professional engineer, a traffic impact study. 12.2.4, the county will consider where applicable the following when evaluating an application to redesignate or subdivide a land. The impact on adjoining nearby land uses, road requirements, county's responsibilities that may result from the development. The county's land use bylaw, section 13.4.12, the highway development district. The general purpose of this district is to regulate development adjacent to public roads. Some of the discretionary uses associated with this district is auxiliary buildings, service stations, cafes, drive-in restaurants, motels, and commercial uses which the development officer may deem appropriate. 6.17.1 deals with the minimum parking requirements. Policy considerations. To redesignate the proposed land is to allow for a boundary adjustment of the existing 9.3 highway development parcel to provide adequate parking, safe for access and egress of existing businesses, and to provide space for future EV charging stations. No additional permanent structures are being proposed at this time. Access to the property will not change and continue to utilize the current approach on Highway 587. Alberta Transportation will have the opportunity to provide additional comments on the proposal if first reading is granted. The purpose of the land does not meet the intended use of the current district being agriculture. It's best suited for the proposed highway development district. Staff recommends that council consider granting first reading of bylaw 1142/23 and proceed to public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Questions for the development officer? Deputy Reeve Milhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. With the additions to the James River General Store not being compliant currently, or having development authority, are we doing this in the right order? Like, I'm not saying that this shouldn't happen, etc. Just should we make sure that everything is in compliance before we rezone something new? Like, I'm just curious.
Well, there's no need to have the process run separately. The order, because the rezoning of that portion is not really hinged on the compliance of those buildings. So that's why a part of the subdivision for the boundary adjustment, the conditions of approval for that subdivision would be that these buildings meet the compliance of our land use bylaw. So whatever is not in compliance now would need to be in compliance before before the subdivision for the boundary adjustment is signed off on.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Northcott, please.
I did not push my button, but I could make a motion, I guess. And
Up to you.
okay, I'll make a
for sure.
motion that council consider granting first reading to bylaw 1142-23 and proceed to public hearing.
Thank you. Councillor Cermak, question related to that motion or comment?
I have a whole bunch of questions.
Okay, great.
Can I continue?
Start away, please.
Okay, first off, I'd like it said that it's not southwest of Caroline, it's southeast of Caroline. In your first opening,
Okay.
Sorry.
I see that there's a farmer's market on the land there at the James River store. That isn't part of, I guess it is part of this, but I understand that the land that's being subdivided off is being sold to a young guy at Eagle Hill. I don't have his name. I have been given lots of information about this. I figure this is a double-edged sword. I like the idea of having this land for extra parking at that site because right now, so as I understand, they are using the road that runs off of 585 or 587 runs north. They're using that road as a parking lot too now at the store. And I have heard from a few farmers down there, they're having quite a bit of difficulty getting their larger equipments down that road because of vehicles parked on it all the time, hindering their agricultural. I kind of class this as a double-edged sword. We're going to give land over here when he still doesn't have his building permits and everything in order at the James River store. So that tells me that we're rewarding somebody for not acting in good faith with what we want as a council. You come, you get building permits or a land development permit so that you can build on it or change the use of the land. I just have a real difficulty with this because I'm like Jenny, I think this needs to be taken care of first before we reward somebody with another piece of land to help us out. I think it's a great move that we do have this EV place that people can charge our electric vehicles on, extra parking for the store. I don't think in the discretionary use at a farmer's market is part of the discretionary use on this parcel of land. Maybe I've already said too much, but
Mr. Clark is ready to kind of add some comments there, so I'll turn the floor across to him and go ahead, please.
Thank you, Reeve Lougheed. In relation to the farmers market, it's no longer being used. The farmers market is no longer going to be occupying that Quonset that is there, so that use is no longer, that facility is no longer being used, or it's not, they're not using it. Also, in relation to the permits, the applicant has submitted development permits to get approval. We're in the process of approving those development permits at the moment. So before it goes to public hearing, we should have, or by the time public hearing is, we have public hearing, the permits should have been approved, possibly, but we are in the process of getting everything in order before this would be finalized, this land use amendment be finalized. Also in regarding to the sale of the property, the it's a condition of sale that this rezoning be done, the building be legalized. So before the sale is finalized, the matters that you have raised should be addressed prior to the sale being finalized.
Okay.
And go ahead, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Just want to note, with the farmer's market, if they were to, like, the James River store has been operating for 30-some years, so
Yep.
they do have approval for that, and same with, like, the farmer's market in that Quonset, it's a matter of legalization. It would be an accessory use. Same with the RMS Plus business, it would be an ancillary use to the primary permitted use, which is the store. We have been in conversation with the landowners or the applicants about legalizing everything. And essentially we were waiting for approval from Alberta Transportation, because our decision is gonna really hinge on what they say, but we've had a positive response from them, and they have issued approval. So as far as legalizing the business in any of the buildings, I don't foresee any issue there on our behalf, except for perhaps the two buildings that are encroaching, one onto the right of way and one onto the north property boundary. Those will still be a condition that they have to be moved or removed to meet the setback distances as best as possible. Just because of the size of the parcel, all of the buildings will require some sort of variance or relaxation. But because it's existing and Alberta Transportation has said yes, that shouldn't be something too out of the ordinary for MPC to approve.
Supplementary, sure.
Thanks. These two buildings that have been put on the property to the east of the store, one was put onto the store, one's beside the store. I think it's a different type of business that's there than a general store. Why has these building permits or permits being taken so long to get? When this person bought the store, he knew that he had to get building permits when he put these new buildings on there. They've been there for over a year, because I drive by there once a week golfing. So I know that they've been there over a year. Well, why has this been such a long, drawn-out process to get this all legalized?
So it is up to the landowner's responsibility to get their permits, and then we are a complaint-based system, which is kind of spurred on where we started our conversation with the landowner. Started with a pile of gravel on the road, and then one of the buildings that is encroaching on that east property boundary. And then when we come to a property, we say, okay, actually, these are all the things that need to be rectified, and then the landowner is definitely now aware. And it is essentially, it's the landowner's responsibility to ensure they have all those permits in place. And if not, then we're complaint based, right?
So, Ms. Williams, how long have you been working with this gentleman to get this all kind of in order? It sounds like it's been way too long as far as I'm concerned. Other people know that they have to get building permits to do this in our county. Why does he think that he should be rewarded with more property now to look after?
I can't speak to what their time frame is or what their reasoning is. They were sent a couple of letters, and we did receive some responses, and then we got the application for the land use amendment and the subdivision. So to us, that's a step towards getting everything legalized, and with that subdivision process, we can certainly add that as a condition that everything is legalized. So you can't do one without the other. I'm not sure if it's a reward or not, or if it's just part of the process to get everything legalized and make it a little bit safer for everybody to have that extra piece of property, for people to park a little bit off the way and help the business grow.
So I might just say what's before council right at the moment is a motion to consider first reading, as well as then the next step would be to move to a public hearing, and that feedback that process does that to hopefully ensure that the public interest is voiced and has a forum to voice that. So that's kind of where we're at the moment.
Yep. I would just like to say, Ms.
One
Williams,
last thing.
I really appreciate what you've done, all the hard work you've done to get this rectified and straightened out. I just hope this doesn't have to happen again in our county. Thank you very much for doing all that hard work and sending the letters and everything. I would approve that we can go to the first reading and have a public hearing.
Thank you for that. Any additional comments? Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. Councillor Cermak, I think it really speaks to the need for an enforcement officer for our land use bylaw and municipal development plans. That it's not strictly complaint-based, because we had to wait for this to be a complaint and or a change of land use or redesignation before any actions were taken. If we had an enforcement officer, perhaps stuff like this would be caught early, because I guarantee this will happen again. Like, this isn't I hope we don't see it again. There is numerous non-compliant properties, and I just think it speaks to the need of a enforcement officer and potentially a variance levy. Thanks.
All right, any additional questions before I call the question before us? So we're clear on the motion then, that's for first reading of this bylaw as well as moving to a public hearing. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Takes us down the list today to item 5.1. Which is Leslieville Elks request for funding support, and that's relating to parking lot paving project. And I'm sure we will be joined by our people out in community and public works there to share some of the information, the background information on this particular item, and I'll welcome Mr. Martinson.
Morning, Council. Sorry to keep you waiting.
No, we're glad you could join us. And we're also joined by Mr. Hanson as well from Public Works Infrastructure. Morning. So I'll let Mr. Martinson lead us off with this request, and then we'll go to Council's questions on this matter.
Yeah, good morning, Council. This one's pretty self-explanatory and straightforward. We've included the letter that the Elks Community Club from Leslieville had submitted to Council with the request to partner or seek some assistance regarding the paving of their parking lot. Administration notes that some work in Leslieville with paving inside the hamlet will occur next year. Of course, sometimes those efficiencies are what spur on these requests. Also, there's no specific policy that handles these types of requests that come from the community from time to time, and Council considers them as they come. And Council probably remembers the last request that came last year from the Condor Community Hall. So I think that's really all we're gonna point out. We're not asking for anything other than approval to do the preliminary work and bring back a number prior to budget or during the budget deliberations.
And I see Councillor Swanson is first to the button, so I shall go to Division 7, please.
Yeah, thanks for that. In the past, we have done other paving for other projects within, I'll say, a hamlet setting. So for me, it's like the Caroline Hub parking lot in conjunction with the Wild Rose School Division. I believe that was 18 or 19. Because the Leslieville Elks does not fall under they do not fall under our community hall policy, correct? Just for clarification?
That is correct.
Okay, so this would probably be a request, this is a request directly from the Elks, not the Leslieville Community Hall, in my opinion. Even though the Leslieville Community Hall uses that parking lot, would that be a fair assumption?
That is really the only parking lot that services the Leslieville Community Hall. Beyond that parking area, the community hall has only street parking in front of the community hall.
Okay, thank you. As far as my my opinion, this is a non-profit, or like, this is an Elks, yeah, social profit, in regards to the Elks and the Leslieville Community Hall. So us fully funding it is not, I would like to see a split. I'd like to see a use, maybe even 50-50, as far as 50 for the county, because it falls under the community halls and the community hall is using it, and the Elks can fund the other 50 because that does not fall under our granting system. But that's just an idea to put out there, and that's where I would like to maybe start the discussion.
And I'll go to the opposite pole, to Division 1, please, or Division 2, sorry.
I personally would support this fully. It's a pillar in that community, and I think that it would it would look nice to help draw people to Leslieville, because people come there for family weddings and family events and things. So, you know, we want people to come here and want to stay here. So it would be a nice draw for that, instead of people having to go through all of the mud to get to the community hall. And I think that would be a benefit. And that community works so hard. And not that, I mean, all of our entire community works very hard, but all of the volunteers and everything with the Leslieville Hall, I'm just very impressed with them all of the time, and all of the volunteering and dedication that they have. So I would fully support this.
And Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. We're currently working on area structure plans for Leslieville and Condor. In the draft, there's I believe it's a rec area indicated in that general vicinity. I don't have the drafts in front of me. Is this gonna hinder future development within that area? Is this gonna stay in line with the drafts for the area structure plans that are being presented? We're going through all the effort to build those plans, and I don't wanna already be outside of them.
Mr. Martinson.
To my understanding, this would be consistent with the uses outlined in the area structure plans.
Thank you.
And Councillor Ratcliffe.
Just to clarify, from what you said, Director Martinson, this is just a request to prepare a budget item for the 2024 budget?
That's correct. Yeah, we're looking to see if council has interest in being a partner on this project, and obviously for preparing that budget number and being able to discuss and negotiate with the community group. We need to know at what level the council wants to be the partner, whether that's 100%, 50%, or 0%. That's sort of what we're trying to get. The actual approval of the budget will come this fall if council wishes to look at this project. But essentially, you're just approving it in principle right now, and the budget will come this fall. Does that answer the question?
Partly. What expense are we looking at to prepare that, you know, that budget item? Like, what sort of study will need to be done? Or
Mr. Hanson?
It'd be very minimal at best to evaluate the parking lot area as well as the structure required. That type of work could easily be done in the season, you know, with the construction season of all next year. So we already have a pre-existing budget there for preparation for our paving for 2024. So that could easily be absorbed into that cost for the evaluation, the creation of the estimate to the 2024 budget.
okay, thank you.
And I would just comment, I've had the great fortune to work with both those groups in other community endeavors over the years, and I know how important that cooperative effort between the Elks and the community in general has been. That parking lot is key to celebrations, it's key to the passages in life, and I think it is a worthwhile community enhancement to support, and I would be supportive of that through the efforts of council as well. Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. I echo your sentiment. It says here that the internal hamlet roads within Leslieville are scheduled for 2023 construction season. Is that actually meant to be the 2024 season? I just don't want to go back and do some more pavement a year after.
Mr. Hanson or Mr. Martinson, whoever.
Yeah, so there is still some sanitary work to be completed in 2023 in Leslieville with the paving scheduled for 2024. As well as we have earmarked 2024 would be the year that we do the access road down into the recreation area, provided that all things get completed this year. So we're looking at, could combine this as a schedule that would be added on to a larger paving project there to hopefully I'll see some cost savings there.
Perfect, thank you. And I also think that this shows that we can hopefully make that area significantly more user-friendly and safer, in particular for fire suppression ability, because people park along the community center right in front, where theoretically it should be a no parking zone in order to allow for fire equipment to park there in the event of an incident, and this would allow for that actually to be accomplished, giving them a safer place to park. I would be supportive that council consider the Leslieville Elks request for funding, support to pave the parking lot and direct administration to gather additional information to be presented to council for further consideration during the 2024 budget deliberations.
Thank you for that motion. Any additional discussion? Councillor Swanson.
I fully believe that, yes, the activities and everything else that happen there is fantastic. I just see that this is outside the scope of our policy of community halls, that this is kind of blending on. So I'd like to see some kind of partnership with this at some point. Skin in the game, I guess that would have to, I would guess where I'm looking at. So I'm not saying that we don't do the paving, but I'm just saying that we need to do it in partnership. So that's for me, I won't support the motion as presented. I believe we do need a partnership with this.
Okay. Councillor Graham?
I do believe that I read somewhere that they are planning on doing fundraising for this. And for me also, it comes back to, maybe we don't need to get into this at this point, it'll be better, this conversation at budget, but it comes back to all the, like, they have the block party there, and it's our hamlet, so for me, that's why I'm okay stepping outside of kind of what we normally do here, so that's just my thoughts.
And Councillor Cermak?
Yeah, who actually owns that property where the parking lot is on now? That's across from the community hall, and who owns the hall that is to the east? Yeah, to the east of that parking lot.
To the east.
Okay.
Mr. Martinson?
Yeah, so the property that this paving project is being proposed is on the Elks property, and so it's deeded property to the Elks Society. The community hall is across the street to the north, and there's an old folks home adjacent to the Elks to the east. They do not, to my knowledge, have any, those are all the community assets clustered into that area. There's also some residential properties that are adjacent as well, and this is separated with the community hall on the north side of the street and the Elks and the old folks home on the south side. That sort out the layout.
Yeah, makes it
That, sorry, the community hall is deeded property owned by the Leslieville Community Club, not-for-profit society.
okay. So that is all Elks land across the road from our hall.
Yes.
So I would like to see a partnership in this also. Thank you.
And Councillor Ratcliffe, and then I'll go to the deputy reef.
All right. I wonder if we could see the wording of that motion. You know, I'm in favor of proceeding to have all the information and the estimates for this before we make a decision on any partnership or, you know, moving forward.
And maybe Deputy Reed Melhoff, because since it was your motion, and I think you may have had a source for that motion.
Yep, I used the staff recommendation. However, as a point of order, I'd like to change the word consider to grants. I used the the wrong verbiage there. However, if it pleases council, we can look at changing this and withdrawing it and changing it to directing administration to gather additional information to be presented to council so that we have more information available. That would be fine, but I'm comfortable leaving it as it stands as well, whichever pleases. But I would like to change it to grants regardless.
Okay, additional comments, questions? We have clarity on what the motion before us is? Okay. Does council wish me to read that off, or are we okay with reading it from the screen? Okay. Does that capture what we're, capture your motion, Councillor or Deputy Reeve Melhoff? Okay, I see nods of approval there. So if there isn't any further discussion on this motion, then I will call that question. All in favor? Oh, sorry, was there?
Can we have something in there on a partnership? Can that be worded in there, just a friendly amendment?
Support for a partnership?
Yeah. Or would that
Would
be
you-
kind of under the information?
Again, I would look to Deputy Reeve Melhoff, who made that motion, whether that would be a friendly amendment or not.
Yes.
My question regarding that is the Condor Community Center not that land not owned by the Condor community? It's not ours either, right?
That's correct. Condor Community Hall is owned by the Condor Community Association.
Right, and this land is used heavily by the Leslieville Community Association, yes? This parking lot area and would continue to be utilized heavily by the Leslieville Community Association.
That's correct. The Elks have an arrangement, formal or informal, I'm not sure, for the community association to utilize, and in fact, they schedule, you know, as a rule to make sure that there's not an event or a large event going on. So it's one parking lot that really services both community groups.
So perhaps an MOU can be formally set up between that group and the Leslieville Community Association, ensuring that they continue to have access to said parking lot, and then we're not funding anything any differently than what we did for the Condor Community Association when we did that.
So,
Yes, no?
go ahead, please, and then I will have a comment around.
I think what I heard was, is it possible for the county to enter into an arrangement with the two community groups to formalize this arrangement to ensure if the county invests that it will be used for the life of the pavement for the community association? If that's the
community.
If that's the question, including the block party, which it's being used for, as Councillor Graham pointed out, the answer is yes, we could enter into a three-party agreement, including the county, if council wished to do that. I can't speak for those other groups, but I would assume they would be favorable to that because they're working together under some sort of formal or informal arrangement that doesn't include the county right now. Most groups are open to those things if it's gonna mean, you know, significant support for an infrastructure arrangement for this. So yes, we could do that, and I would assume, but I cannot speak for them, that those groups would be favorable or open to it.
So I would just comment, because a number of times the Condor Community Center project has been referenced here. There is a slight difference, or a distinct difference.
Yes.
The Condor Community lot was originally paved by the Condor Community Center Association, and has been an existing paved lot for many, many years. And of course, that has become heavily used by not only community center people, but also by staging of equipment. Our county uses it. Everybody turns on it. Heavy equipment turns on. So the usage there was a little different than what we're talking about here. But I do see from the point we're at, there is definitely some similarities where we're at. But there is a little difference in that we were working from a different starting point perhaps than we are when we're discussing the Elks lot, even though the community uses it in much the same way. And I'm sure that the Elks lot is used for staging of equipment and those kinds of things. It's just part of the community that people know and appreciate, and I believe would want to support. So anyway, that's my kind of thoughts. Where are we at? Oh, there's lights everywhere. I'm going to go to Councillor Swanson first, and then I'll go to Councillor Northcott, please.
I see that Debbie Reeve Melhoff's motion really has two decisions in it. One is to grant the Elks the funding support, and the other one is to direct administration to gather extra information. I would be more comfortable with separating making it into two, because those are two separate ideas in my opinion. So that, you know, we as a friendly amendment, maybe divide them and just have the period stop at, you know, that we support the paving of the grants or of the Leslieville Elks Hall parking lot, period, and that could be a separate motion, and that we could direct administration to gather more information in regards to present during the budget process. But to me, there's two ideas in that particular motion, so I'm just looking to Debbie Reeve Melhoff for her opinion.
With that, I'll allow you to respond to.
Just to, like, because you're saying friendly amendment, that's typically grammatical, spelling, punctuation. So that would not be considered friendly in my thoughts for parliamentary procedure. I still think we have an opportunity when we go to budget and strategic planning. If we needed to change direction, we could. I don't see this locking us in fully unless we're seeing otherwise.
And I see opportunity within the wording of this to participate in a funding process without necessarily saying that we're not funding the whole thing. It's just a funding support. So, and I think like anything we do on council, we really like to know what the price tag is before we actually commit to that budget amount. And so I believe that would be captured in this motion as well.
Because we can discuss it again during the 2024 budget deliberation
absolutely.
process.
What I see here is a commitment to support and then adjust what that is in the budget process once we understand the full funding request, because we don't know what that number is right now. So. Sorry, Councillor Northcott, please.
Yeah, I think that the staff recommendation here was simply, but yeah, I would agree with you, Reeve, that it would be nice to be able to see a budget number before approving it, because the way that this motion is written right now, council grants. So if either one amendment that I would see on that, the way it's written, is that rather than council grants, Leslieville Elks request would be consider. And then to be able to see a dollar amount or the estimated amount for the dollar figure to be able to pay the parking lot in the future. So I don't know if we can amend that or not to rather than granting, but
again,
consider.
Deputy Reeve Melhoff's motion, so I'll allow her whether that's a friendly amendment or if she wants to.
Well, originally it was consider, and I was instructed otherwise, that was not accurate grammatically, that it needed to be granted.
Yes.
So if we can, originally it was consider.
Yeah, I believe
and I would be fine with it being consider, but I was instructed otherwise
I think
by administration to change it.
And I would believe that consider that's, I mean, we have to decide yay or nay kind of thing. So, you know, I mean, I think that we don't want to leave the air clouded. That I believe this one indicates that we would give some level of funding support, and then that would be based on deliberations in the budget process. That's my perspective on it. I don't know if that's shared, but if we have, we'll go to Councillor Graham see if she can add extra clarity on this. So,
While I fully support this motion as it is, I am worried that it's not gonna go through if we have that first half in it. As Councillor Swanson recommended, if we could split it into two or just have the information gathering part, because we don't really need the first part anyways, I don't think. I think all of our intention is to discuss this at budget and go from there when we have all the information. So I'm just fearful it's not gonna go through looking at the faces around the table here as it's presented.
any additional, your light is on. Again, your motion, Deputy Reeve Milhoff.
I'm comfortable in letting it stand, and if it's defeated, another motion can be made. I'm comfortable in letting it stand. I support the Leslieville Elks and what they stand for within our community. I support the Leslieville Community Association and what they stand for in our community. And I have no doubt that we will support them in one way or another during budget deliberations, even if it becomes a partnership. I'm willing to let it stand.
Okay, thank you for that. And I will be supporting this motion as well, because I think the intent is clear that we support this project, but based on the budget process. Councillor Ratcliffe, please.
I just want to clarify my intentions here, where the motion tells the Leslieville Elks that we will provide some financial support, and we just need the information to determine what level that's going to be. So I will support this motion.
Okay. Any additional comments? Councillor Northcott.
Absolutely, no, I support the paving project for this. I would support it, but I know anytime that I go to buy something, I like to know what the price tag is gonna be before I decide on it. So this is really approving it with, I don't know what the number is on it. So I would still like to be able to see a number on there before, because really this does approve it, the project. I don't know what the cost is, so.
As I read it, that parentheses there, to determine the amount of funding, support, and partnership opportunities, that's gonna be in the 2024 budget process. That's how I read that.
We can approve anything and then not fund it fully during budget. That's always an option.
Okay, additional, Councillor Swanson.
Yes, I think through this discussion that council has just had, and hopefully clarity to pass on to administration, I'll support this, but when we have this discussion at budget 24, we'll see where the information comes from.
We never know what hard decisions we have to make during that budget, right? That last dime might be the one we need. All right, with that, I will call the motion before us. All those in favor? And those opposed? That is carried. All right, let's take 10 here, and we'll be back at 10:26. Welcome back, everyone. We moved through our agenda of the day, and we're down to section 6, and more specifically, item 6.1, emergency services mutual aid agreement between the town of Rocky Mountain House and Clearwater County. And we're joined by Ms. Haggart today, our Director of Emergency and Legislative Services, and she will introduce this item for us, please.
Thank you, Reeve Lougheed, and good morning, members of council. This item is before council to endorse the signature on the agreement that the Reeve just mentioned. As council is well aware, the previous agreement that we would have had under the Clearwater Regional Emergency Management Agency expired a couple years back. This is an effort to formalize an existing and longstanding mutual aid agreement between the town and county. Clearwater County does continue to have a regional emergency management agency and committee. That's through an agreement with the village and the summer village, which you're also aware of, and those ministerial orders to give us powers to act on their behalf. And that regional entity was enacted in 2021, so I won't go too far into that. Town administration brought the attached draft to their Municipal Emergency Management Committee in March for endorsement, followed by their subsequent endorsement at their regular council meeting on March 23rd, so just recently. We'd been working on the draft over the last year and a bit, again, to formalize that longstanding and so informal agreement in between. As this is an agreement between Clearwater County and the town of Rocky, there's no need for the Clearwater County to do the same thing the town did where they brought it to their committee, because that committee is regional and the agreement is just between Clearwater County and the town. We have many mutual aid agreements with our adjacent municipal and other entity partners, including Ag and Forestry, Brazeau, Lacombe, Mountain View, Ponoka, Red Deer counties, town of Eckville, Sundre, and Sylvan, Yellowhead and Wetaskiwin County, Stoney First Nation, and then of course Summer Village and the village of Caroline. And again, this process of having administration vet the agreement, this one also with legal opinion, is consistent with our historical practice for all of our mutual aid agreements that were either developed or amended following our intermunicipal collaboration framework discussions that started back in 2019 and were developed up into 2021. So requests for assistance in case council or anyone else is interested, how those occur through requests from other municipalities who the mutual aid agreements exist. They're made in accordance with each agreement is a little bit different. Most of them have a flow of assistance being requested from a director of emergency management to another director of emergency management for emergencies. Town of Rocky Mountain House, Village of Caroline, Summer Village of Burnstick Lake. We have a fire services agreement. Obviously, those are automatic responses. Any other fire service requests for mutual aid through these agreements would be dealt with at the chief officer level. So a fire chief to fire chief could request a certain type of truck or assets. If we have those available to be used by an adjacent neighbor, we certainly do that as part of these mutual aid agreements as well. So I'll turn that back to the Reeve. Would you like me to go through the agreement in detail, or would you prefer council just ask questions related to anything in particular?
Well, thank you, and I would look to council if they want anything in particular highlighted or want to go through it in more detail. Councillor Swanson first, and then I'll go to Councillor Ratcliffe.
I'm okay as is, but I do have a question on 1.1 of the bylaw, where we talk about the authorized official. I see that
I think, are you looking at code of conduct?
No,
Oh, sorry.
I'm looking at the agreement.
Oh, sorry,
The agreement, sorry,
Yes.
yeah, on 1.1. Under authorized official, we have highlighted in bold county CPO duty officer, and then a blank. We are not putting a name per se in there for the CPO, for the county or the town CPO, because this is a bylaw, we don't know who will change, correct? Just making sure.
If I may,
If
Reeve
you
Lougheed,
would,
absolutely. That is actually being redacted. It's a phone number.
Okay.
Yeah, just because it's not a publicly available number.
Okay,
Same for the towns as well.
okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
you
Just for
betcha.
clarification.
So yeah, anywhere you'd see those gray highlights, there's a phone number underneath it.
Fair.
And I apologize, because it was an agreement, I was confused with the next one, which was a bylaw, so that's my fault. I apologize, Councillor Swanson.
All right, thank you.
And Councillor Ratcliffe, please.
Thank you, Reeve. I noticed there's no termination date on this. I assume that's by design?
Yes, you bet. An agreement of this nature can be perpetual. Again, there is a termination clause where you could have a period of time. I feel like that is listed on later on in the agreement.
Yes, 3.2.
Yes, you betcha. Sorry, was it 3.2 you said?
Yeah, okay, there's just no automatic termination date.
Yes, you bet. Some we do if it's an agreement we expect to change, but because this is a fairly basic mutual aid agreement, we're okay without a period of time. That's certainly something could be added to an agreement if council so chose. I have no concern if it was added, but again, it's something where we don't feel like the agreement's going to change in a period of time. A funding agreement would have a period of time because you'd want to maybe reconsider that. The other thing I wanted to mention that this agreement has that some of the other ones don't is the reference to the fire services being automatic, and then also the FCSS related emergency social service component that we would expect partnership with. So that was added into this agreement. So it's a little bit different than some of the other mutual aid agreements, expecting those partnerships to remain regional, of course.
Okay, any additional questions on the material? Go ahead, Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you. On the second last page, item 28, payments of monies. I'm just wondering why these would be made through legal counsel.
And that would be a standard agreement clause if there was a fee for the service provided. So it's saying that if we're going to invoice you for that mutual aid rendered, that payment would be required in a certain manner. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so that legalese, almost all of those last clauses of the agreement when it comes from all the way starting at general, the notices 14 onwards would be something you'd see in almost every mutual aid agreement that we would have as standard legalese clauses. And, you know, to make sure that the agreement is enforceable. If there's a cost associated with administering the agreement, that those would be paid accordingly. I know it seems like it's intuitive when you pay for something, it's paid in Canadian funds and otherwise, but again, one of those legalese terminologies that's included in most agreements.
And I think part of the reason there is to avoid the instance if two parties were fighting a little bit, that they might show up with a wheelbarrow full of nickels to make a payment. So I think it's defining appropriate process. So I think it's probably worthwhile. Any additional thoughts, comments, questions relating to this? Deputy Reeve Milhoff, please.
Thank you, Reeve. No, just that, you know, good work. It was actually fairly easy reading, and agreements are often not. So I really appreciate the ease of readability. I know that this will in no way impact our fire services ability to respond with or without this agreement. We ensured that the community had the utmost response that we can provide, and that it will continue in perpetuity, I'm sure, for the safety of our residents, the town residents, and the village residents. And I certainly support this document.
Okay. Any additional questions? I would be looking for a motion to endorse this by council. Deputy Reeve Milhoff.
That council receive and endorse for signature the 2023 Emergency Services Mutual Aid Agreement between the town of Rocky Mountain House and Clearwater County.
Thank you for that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Item 6.2, and this is relating to a draft bylaw on 1143/22 Code of Conduct. And again, I will go to Ms. Haggart to introduce this item, please.
Thank you again, Reeve Lougheed. So I'll just read the background for this agenda item, and then we'll get into the bylaw amendments itself. So as council is well aware that section 146 of the Municipal Government Act states that a council must by bylaw establish a code of conduct governing the conduct of councillors. The MGA section also allows for governing conduct of members of committees and other bodies that are established by council who are not councillors. So that is something, the bodies established by council by bylaw, some of our committees, those are able to be governed by that code of conduct as well. Council must review this code of conduct bylaw at least once per term. And currently we have bylaw 1034-17, which is council's code of conduct bylaw. At the March 28th regular council meeting, council also supported a motion related to research for whether fees could be administered along with a code of conduct complaint submission. Following that closed session discussion on that date and a legal opinion review related to the code of conduct bylaw itself, council determined that although fees could be added to the bylaw, consensus was to not include those fees with these draft bylaw revisions. And again, following council's closed session review of the legal opinion on the bylaw itself from that March 28th meeting, attached administration is prepared for council's consideration a new draft bylaw. So with bylaws, you have the opportunity to either amend a piece of the bylaw by bylaw, or what we tend to like to do is have a whole new bylaw number and rescind or repeal the old bylaw, just so that it's nice and clean of a process. You don't have to look at two bylaws to get the intent of what one bylaw would have. This doesn't work in all cases, so it's not always the way we do it, but in this case, administration's recommending a whole new bylaw with a new number with some material changes in terms of cleaning up the bylaw wording relating to councillors and council committee members and just calling them members. Further clarifying the complaint process and adding opportunity for an informal complaint process, and updates to terminology referenced within, including some things like the Alberta Human Rights Act, by just embedding that wording right within the bylaw. During the code of conduct bylaw discussions during closed session, council indicated the need for clarity around pecuniary interest, and the MGA reference within the bylaw is believed to be sufficient. However, the MGA definition I included in the agenda item, just so it's clear, everyone has it handy in front of them if they wanted to take a look at it. We can certainly amend the bylaw as we go through the process as well. If council wishes to add words, we're happy to do that. And if there are any further amendments, we'll do that as we go through it. So if council wishes, I don't know if you'd like to go through the entire bylaw or just answer questions.
Thank you for summarizing. Does council wish to bear into any particular part or create a spotlight or a focus on anything that's, and I think Councillor Ratcliffe is finger to the button. So we'll let you start with a comment or two.
Okay, thank you, Reeve. Section under definitions 2.5. I see where or family is put in there to derive personal benefit. I think it would read better if that was placed. So the Section 170 of the Municipal Government Act, or a situation in which a member or their family is in a position to derive personal benefit.
Sorry, council, what section is that? Sorry.
Page 50, 2.5. The very bottom of the page, 250 and the top of.
And that goes over into the next page as well.
51.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I think that follows the MGA more, and the MGA has a definition of what family would be as well.
Councillor Ratcliffe, sorry, could I just ask that you clarify, you said the terminology or family needs to be relocated to where?
Okay, so the bottom line on page 50 should read, or a situation in which a member or their family is in a position to derive personal benefit. So move family from the top of page 51 down into the bottom of page 50. So it would be a member or their family.
Okay. I'm clear now, so I have no
Sorry.
concern with that amendment. I just wanted to make sure I knew where it was going, so that makes sense to me. Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe, for explaining.
Okay, any,
I have another one.
maybe we'll go to Councillor Swanson, then we'll come back for your next amendments.
I'm into 3.6. In that particular paragraph, we're to make a decision in regards to whether we want to say at the beginning of each term of the council or at least every 4 years. Because we have 3.5 that lists, that says that the bylaw is presented at the council's orientation at the beginning of the term. I don't want to be repetitive, and I would be in favor of putting it at least every 4 years after that and not having at the beginning of each term of council. So just scratch the beginning and just put at least every 4 years.
Okay, seeing head nods.
In 3.6?
In 3.6, because it's repetitive. We already have it in 3.5 that we are going to see the bylaw at the beginning of the beginning of a term.
I'll just say that my interpretation of 3.5 is that as new councillors come in, that they have been oriented or they've actually seen the code of conduct, that it does exist, not necessarily that they're going to adjust it.
And that's what 3.6 is indicating, that if we do any, whatever, that we're considering amendments within our term.
Within the term.
And if I may, Reeve Lougheed, Councillor Swanson is correct. And it's a either or kind of scenario if you wanted to look at it in your first beginning of each term within a period of time, or at least every 4 years. As long as council looks at it once in that 4-year term, we've met the requirements of the MGA, so it's at your discretion. But it would be provided as part of the nominee package, the new councillor package, perhaps is included with the organizational meeting just as an awareness tool. And even if you looked at it in 4 years from now, and there may not be any amendments, as long as you re-endorse it with council resolution, it doesn't have to be amended necessarily.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to go to Deputy Milhoff, and then I'll come back to Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Reeve. With 3.6, are you suggesting then that they remove also look at it when relevant legislation is amended? Like, okay. So what? Sorry.
Tracy, could you pull up 3.6?
So it goes, the bylaw shall be brought forward for review at least every 4 years. So scratch.
Okay, scratch the beginning of each.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yep, at least every 4 years.
Totally.
That's all I was indicating.
Sounds good.
Okay. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Okay, in section 3.2, we've added clarification that as a member conduct themselves in all public settings. Could we have a definition of what that means, what a public setting means? Is that kind of vague?
It certainly could be added to the bylaw, so chooses. In terms of, that was an add-on from the discussion at our previous council meeting.
Yes.
And my interpretation of public settings would be anywhere the public is present, whether in person or online. That would be my definition, but we could certainly include it as a definition if council wishes.
Okay, well, yes, as to a definition of what public would be. You know, is it an official gathering? Is it on a street corner?
We could go biblical on it and say where 2 or more are gathered, kind of thing, but that would be public, I guess. Deputy Reeve Milhoff?
Thank you, Reeve. For me, I consider myself to be holding this office always, public or not, and I do my best to conduct myself that way online, at the grocery store, at the park. Like, I do my best to conduct myself in accordance to what I feel this office should uphold always. So I don't know if there needs to be clarity, but the way that I do it and the way that others do may not be the same. So maybe that clarity is is needed. I think in particular online might be a good add-in. As
Yeah.
many people may not see online forum, even social media, as a public setting where it very much is, if not more so.
And I agree. I think society evolves and changes, and I think we used to recognize a private moment much more than maybe perhaps with social media, that it just creates a broader view of what's public information. And I think we have to be careful when we're conducting ourselves as councillors of how we approach that general social media. So I'm not sure if we can capture that, but. Councillor Ratcliffe?
Oh, I had no more.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Emmons.
Thank you, Reeve Lougheed. May I trouble council to read back for administration 2.5 with the suggested amendment so I can follow? Please?
2.5. And maybe I'll let Councillor Ratcliffe define that one more in his line of thoughts around that.
Okay, the whole 2.5 would be conflict of interest means a pecuniary interest as described by section 170 of the Municipal Government Act, or a situation in which a member or their family is in a position to derive personal benefit from actions or decisions made in their official capacity. Okay.
And Mr. Emmons again?
Thank you for the clarification. Maybe for benefit, if I may, 2.5 refers to the member that is on the committee or council. What follows that clarifies the pecuniary interest, that member or his family. Injecting family in the forefront changes the entire intent of this and no longer complies with the Municipal Government Act. This is dealing with the conflict with the member, not the family that comes after. Is it still council's intent to change that?
It's just that, you know, the MGA describes pecuniary interest as affecting the member or their family.
Mr. Emmons?
And absolutely correct, Councillor Ratcliffe. That is indeed accurate. And 2.5 speaks to that. Section 170, in which a member, which is the member of a committee, a member of council, the member, is in a position to derive personal benefit or family. So that's the part that speaks to their family. Does that help? No?
I'm not sure, yeah, I'm not sure where, I can understand why even just changing the order here slightly does, I guess, this has been vetted through legal. Okay, so, sometimes when we change, like the order, we can open up a different level of interpretation. So it's nice if we go into it with the clarity that we're hoping to end up with here. So, Councillor Ratcliffe, anything further on that? I know your light's still. Well, perhaps I'll go to Councillor Northcott. Maybe he has some perspective to add to that, and then Councillor Graham after that.
Nope, again, I didn't push my
Oh,
button.
ghost light.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Graham then.
I see where Councillor Radcliffe is coming from. When I read it the first time, I read it like the same way I adjusted it in my brain. But then when I read it again a couple more times, I do prefer how it's written here. It just, I agree that it is more suited to the MGA how it's written here, I guess, if that makes sense. But I see where you were coming from when switching it. I did that in my brain the first time too. It made more sense. But I personally support how it is here currently as presented.
And I would just comment that we always have to defer to the MGA and all of our, that's the hierarchy of things. Even if we put something in here and it was different than what the MGA said, and we still have to follow its particular meaning or its legalized, or its legal interpretation of meaning. That's the challenge there. Deputy Reeve Melhoff, please.
Thank you, Reeve. I'm curious if we could just put conflict of interest means a pecuniary interest as described by section 170 subsection 1 of the Municipal Government Act, period. And then you're automatically referring back to that, and then it's covers the entire, that whole section. Because we have to follow it anyway. Is that not something that would be just 170 subsection 1 done?
If I may, Reeve Lougheed, I'll answer that one if I can. I believe the intent of leaving that in would be to cover off those that aren't elected as councillors that may not be governed by the Municipal Government Act and would be governed by our bylaw, our Code of Conduct bylaw. Yeah, so my preference would be to leave it as it stands as well.
No, thank you for the clarity. Then I would also agree.
Because we did shift
it covering everybody. Yep.
To a member as opposed to a council member. It's a little bit broader scope.
I agree. Thank you.
Additional thoughts? Councillor Ratcliffe?
I don't think it's worth debating much more. Let's leave it and move on.
Okay, thank you. So where it sits now as written there, where we have a level of consensus on that? I'm seeing thumbs up. Okay. Anything else that we want to highlight? Councillor Graham, and then I'll go to Councillor Swanson.
I withdraw my button.
Okay, withdraw. We'll go to Division 7, please.
Okay. Going to number 52 in the bylaw, or page 61 of 87. In the bottom of the paragraph or the last sentence, it refers to be advised of the board's disposition. I would change that to the council's disposition. We've never referenced a board throughout the whole document, and then the council is there, so.
I concur with Councillor Swanson's amendment to 52. That was likely a copy and paste error as the bylaw was being created.
52.
So Schedule A, number 52, and it's the last sentence, remove board, replace with council.
Okay. Okay, we have clarity on, Councillor Graham?
I just wanted to go back to the fees that I proposed in my notice of motion in January and just say that I very much support our decision to not implement them on this with all the information. And I wanted to thank council for allowing for us to explore that idea, and to staff or administration for providing us the information to make that decision. And I think we're done with questions here. So I would like to make a motion that council approves with amendments the first reading of the Code of Conduct Bylaw 1143/23.
Okay, thank you for that. Further discussion on that motion? Yeah, we could do 1, 2.
Oh, I thought we already did first reading, sorry.
I think, no, not on this draft, so. So with clarity then, we have a motion for first reading on this draft as amended today. Okay, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. With that, we can entertain, were there any further questions? We can entertain second reading as well. Councillor Swanson?
Second reading.
Okay, thank you for that. Further discussion on second reading. All those in favor? And that's carried. And then I would need a motion to allow for third reading. Deputy Reeve Melhoff?
Thank you, Reeve. I would motion to allow for third reading and a subsequent question.
Okay,
Seeing as how this covers our boards, and many of our board members have never had an orientation or anything really, I think it would be behoove us to actually do a board member orientation morning, or make sure that this gets presented at their next board meeting or whatever, because many of them have not had an orientation and are not aware that this will cover them. So perhaps that is something that should be done and would be appropriate.
okay. I can just comment, I think there would definitely be a benefit for that. I don't know how we incorporate that in other than in each of those boards and committees, that be one of the first orders of process as they convene, and just make sure that each member is aware of what is in the content of that. So maybe handing a copy or going through would be a great way to create an orientation package for a new board member, or a new member, period. So, okay, we have a motion for permission for third reading before us. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. I would look for a motion for third reading. Councillor Graham was first with the hand up this time. That's great. Any discussion on third reading? All those in favor then? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Ms. Haggard, for joining us and leading us through that today. Takes us to item 7.1, and that's the Office of the CAO and some, okay. And I think there would be a motion there that council receives information on the legal and practical aspects of a fee or a deposit related to that. And I know that Councillor Graham did reference that suggestion before. Perhaps we're really, is there an opportunity here to dive deeper into that? Or I think we had kind of put that one to bed. So do we need a motion then to just receive that for information?
I agree, we've put that to bed, and I was just gonna make the motion that we receive information on legal and practical aspects, fees and or deposits related to unsubstantiated code of conduct complaints as presented.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I call that question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we move to item 7.1, and I look to Mr. Emmons to lead us into the unknown.
Thank you, Reeve Lougheed and council. So this agenda is before council today. Since I've been back, I've noticed an elevated need really to close a gap in potential liability for council and Clearwater County, and the need for a position to look after the higher level bylaw, those agreements, the policy reviews, ensure they're all being conducted in a timely manner. The addition of 13 ICFs and all those agreements as well has added another burden. So therefore, the staff recommendation, council approves an additional permanent full-time equivalent administrative support position under the Office of the CAO, and approves $75,000 increase to the Office of the CAO in the 2023 operating budget, and a $75,000 decrease to contingency fund to fund the position effective May 1st, 2023. So as previously mentioned, the need to increase internal service levels related to council and the Office of the CAO is evident. The intent of restructuring the Office of the CAO is to meet this need and to increase efficiency and effectiveness in assisting council and improve focus on long-term administrative goals. The CAO's role is to implement council's decisions and manage the day-to-day operations of the municipality while focusing on the long-term beyond the 4-year election mandate, given current and future need for timely intermunicipal collaboration framework activities, strategic planning work, potential improvements to board and committee recruitment processes, municipal restructuring, work pending the outcome of the Clearwater Village amalgamation study. Additional administrative support is vital for the betterment of the office and the organization as a whole. This position's salary is approximately $100,000, including benefits. Should council approve the additional position, approximately $75,000 is required to fund this position for the remainder of 2023. As per the staffing policy and hiring policy, professional development, succession planning, the new position would be recruited internally.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any questions of Mr. Emmons? I think the intent and the outline is relatively clear here. And this would be of course, Councillor Swanson.
Yeah, being as how this is a second term for myself and Reeve Lougheed, we've understood that the load is getting heavier. There's much more downloading by the province and the feds in all this. It continues. We've never thought we'd have a policing line or, part of this, as part of our crime, even to the extent of our involvement with, the seniors and the healthcare that involve in our community. So I can understand that the jurisdictions are starting to weigh us down. So I'll make the motion then that we approve the additional permanent full-time equivalent administrative full-time position under the Office of the CO and approve the $75,000 increase to the Office of the CO in 2023 operating budget and the $75,000 decrease to contingency to fund the position effective May 1st.
Thank you for that motion. Any additional comments, questions? Deputy Reeve Milhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. I will certainly be supporting this motion. I just have a question. Is administrative support enough, or do we need to look at an actual, and perhaps that's better discussed in a workshop or a strategic visioning meeting where we look at the direction of the county and look at even more support, not just administrative support for the Office of the CAO. With the span of control changing significantly with the amalgamation with Caroline. I just want to ensure that you're given all the support that you need, and perhaps digging deeper and not just be administrative support would be appropriate.
Mr. Emmons?
Thank you for that, Deputy Milhoff. I really appreciate the recognition. I would definitely suggest that stays a topic between administration and council going forward. Don't know where at this time that amalgamation study will bring us, but I believe it's going to require some very interesting conversations with council, and I also believe it's going to create some fantastic opportunities for our community as well, in the positive. So I think we need to all stay as open-minded, and that's advice for myself, as possible. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Comment I would make, definitely kind of alluding to what Councillor Swanson said earlier, is definitely, try as you might, a municipal government gets more and more complex as time goes on. There's just more things that cross the desks of our staff to try and make sure that they're really representing the interests of their community. And that workload is real, and it will probably build as the future goes on. So I want to make sure we're a step ahead of that, and let's not have our staff trying to play catch up on any of this. So I can see I'll be supporting this. I think it's overdue, and I think we can move forward from there. Councillor Ratcliffe, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Yes, I will be supporting this as well, although I did have similar thoughts to what the Deputy Reeve has expressed, and we'll keep those for a further conversation.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments? If not, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Down to our report section, and I guess we'll lead off with Mr. Emmons again with the CAO report, please.
Thank you very much, Council. The April 11th CAO report, the EDO update for Economic Development Officer, Jerry Pratt, the EDO for Clearwater County, and Jeff Harding, the EDO for the town of Rocky Mountain House, promoted tourism in the David Thompson Country with a booth at the Calgary Boat and Outdoor Show, the Red Deer Outdoor Show, and the Edmonton Boat and Sportsman Show. While most of the conversations were about camping, hiking, fishing, and OHV trails, there were quite a few conversations with the people about the lifestyle of Clearwater County and the joys of living here. The departments of Planning, Ag and Community Services, Emergency and Legislative Services hosted an information meeting for realtors in February. 17 registered for the event. Topics discussed include zoning, building codes for shops, weeds, grazing leases from a rangeland agrologist. The EDO attended and participated in the advocacy summit held by the Tourism Industry of Alberta Association in February. Common issues across the industry were lack of labor, lack of affordable housing, especially in rural and remote regions. A Clearwater County community profile and investor profile have been completed and will be posted on the website under the EDO, under the Economic Development. These documents contain information that investors and site selectors look for regarding land availability, services, and demographics. The EDO has been very involved with Travel Alberta in the development of tourism development nodes, zone plans, David Thompson Corridor, Rocky Mountain House to Icefield Parkway, and the Cochrane to Sundre to Rocky Mountain House Corridor. The consultants have finished their report and submitted them to Travel Alberta and the Ministry of Forestry, Parks and Tourism. Future presentations will be made to Council depending on the release of the documents. Material will be used from these two plans to update the regional tourism strategy in 2024 for Clearwater County, Rocky Mountain House, and Caroline. Central Alberta Tourism Alliance has been working on the agritourism strategy over the last several months for its stakeholders, 8 municipalities in total. It has had the input of several agritourism operators in the county, plus dozens of surrounding communities. The strategy is being finalized and a presentation will be made soon to which council members will be invited.
Okay, questions for the CAO on his report? Councillor Ratcliffe.
I don't really have a question. It looks like we've been very busy in this area, and I look forward to seeing the results of all this work.
Thank you. Additional questions, comments? If not, I'd look for a motion to accept the CAO's report for information. Councillor Ratcliffe, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Broadband Core Backbone Project update. That's been circulated as well. Were there any particular clarifications or questions relating to that? Councillor Cermak, please.
Can anybody give us a date when it's going to be hooked up in holes? It just says early in the second quarter. Previously, we had reports saying it was going to be hooked up in the first quarter.
Mr. Hagan?
Thank you, Reeve Lougheed. Good morning, Council. There has been some uncertainty around that. We've run into some difficulties finishing the last very short piece of the construction. Working with the town of Olds, working with their engineers, as well as our consultants as well. So we are anticipating, we're very confident it will be in the second quarter. Probably first part of the second quarter would be my estimation. I think we're very close to completing at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions relating to the core backbone project? Okay, thank you very much for that motion to accept that report for information. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Councillor reports, and again, I'll look to my extreme right to Councillor Graham to share her couple of weeks.
So for most of the things we did together, but for a couple of points here, the Condor and Leslieville area structure plan meetings, there was some great information gathered, and I look forward to the committee getting back together to make some more decisions on that. There was the Cape Workforce Strategy Summit. It began with a smudge ceremony, and then Chief Clarence Louis spoke to us, Matt Tenney spoke to us, and I also really enjoyed Dr. Joy Agnew. I don't know how to properly pronounce her name, from Olds College, so speaking to ag technology. That was really great. Many great presenters there, and learned lots at the Cape Workforce Strategy Summit. I had my counselor drop-in session, and I had a few people drop in, some wonderful conversations about many topics, and some great perspectives were shared. And I appreciate the people taking the time out of their day to stop in. I think people are starting to take advantage of those drop-ins, which is wonderful. And then we had the workshop on municipal housing corporation, which we were all there for. And that concludes my not very lengthy council report.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions for Councillor Graham? Well, again, thank you for your report, and I'll go to Councillor Northcott, please.
My last couple of weeks haven't been overly busy. I did attend some of the same events that Councillor Graham had just mentioned, but at this time I don't have anything to report.
Thank you. And I'll move to Deputy Reeve Melhoff, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, the ASP in Leslieville was great, and I'm looking forward to seeing the work that comes out of that as well. The one thing about the Cape work, because I attended that with you as well, I love the changing the verbiage from social profit instead of nonprofit, because there's many nonprofit organizations that they do have profit, just not monetary, but they have social profit within our communities, and I really like that verbiage, and we'll try better to change that. I also really enjoyed Matt Tenney's presentation, and I'm reading his book now, and I encourage anybody, and you can listen to it, it's on audio, because let's face it, that's what I have time for, is audiobooks. I encourage everybody else to do the same. It's great. And Chief Louis, I really loved his quote about politicians, that politicians gauge the room and present accordingly, but leaders lead the crowd and do not bend. I loved that, and would like to think that we're in the leaders category, not the political category. I did an interview for the Mountaineer for Doctors Week to help with that particular article that will be coming out, or that spread in the paper that will be coming out, I believe, next week or the week after. And with Watershed Wednesday, with the North Saskatchewan Watershed, they are including, starting to try to include creeks and streams and branch out from the major rivers, because what's happening at the creeks and streams obviously impacts the watershed itself, so they're trying to branch out, particularly in metropolitan areas, but that'll be nice to see that roll out. And I really enjoyed the municipal corporation workshop that we did. I learned a lot, and I think that there's definitely some ways that can be incorporated into our municipality. And we had a health settlement sub-meeting with the health engagement team. One to prepare for Rural Health Week, which is at the end of May. So you guys will be seeing things in your inboxes for events to join us at, to engage with the healthcare people in our community. And we're also talking about trying to find ways for housing. Housing is a huge issue for healthcare in our community, and we need to maybe reinvent the wheel on what that looks like, because we're having a really hard time housing nurses in particular. So stay tuned, we might have some asks coming in order to solve some of those issues, but that's me.
Great. Thank you. Questions for Deputy Reeve Melhoff? Well, seeing none, thank you again, and I'll go to Councillor Ratcliffe.
Sorry. Thank you, Reeve. Because I wasn't here for the first part of the last meeting, I'm going to go back a little bit. I attended the Healing Round Dance at the Loose Offutt Centre. I was able to talk with some local Indigenous people about the ceremonies and the cultures behind it, so I have a much better understanding of that ceremony. I met an interesting young fellow who works for Bunch Projects. And one of the things he does is he goes to the reserve schools, I think, and he gives career presentations about all of the different technologies that, and they're significant, that are used there at Bunch Projects. And he's trying to recruit apprentices to come and work, but also to get that training and that self-sustainability. It's just another indication of the great community we live in, that would be one of their focuses. I also attended a virtual community safety town hall where the ministers were talking about the changes they're making to deal with this revolving door property crime issue, that they're hiring, I believe it was 140 new clerks, but they're also creating a group that is going to assess the criminal charges that come forward to streamline the process so that the ones that are ready to be acted on can get first into court. So hopefully that will bring some more contentment to those of us living in the rural area. I also attended the area structure plan meetings in Condor and Leslieville. The municipal corporation workshop that was also been mentioned previously, I think opens some possibilities for how we can, as alternatives to provide services into the community that are needed to advance our growth or and our sustainability. And of course, I went to the Highway 11 twinning project presentation in Sylvan Lake. There'll be more details coming as that is finalized in the future. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Questions for Councillor Ratcliffe? Seeing none, thank you again, and we'll move to Councillor Cermak.
Thank you, Reeve. I also attended the ASP meetings in Leslieville and Condor. Pretty informative. I am certainly looking forward to more information on what's going to come back from the committee. I think there's 7 or 8 people, or maybe even more than that, on that committee, which I thought was fantastic that we had that kind of turnout, that people were that involved in their community. I think that's just great. And then I attended the workshop in Red Deer. Chief Louis was just, if anybody gets a chance to listen to that man, you need to spend the hour. He was fantastic. Like, just, I was overwhelmed by the wisdom that man has. And then I attended 3 days in Edmonton on a ASHA conference. And I attended a workplace bullying breakout session. And I think that you guys all got a report. I picked up some stuff and Tracy Linton photographed it, but to give to all of the council. That was certainly enlightening to me. I didn't know that bullying was that widespread from the whole gamut of what we see. Politics, our private lives, individuals, employees, employers, everything is affected by it. And I was just kind of dumbfounded at some of the statements that this Linda Crockett made. She was a founder of it, and if anybody wants to know more information about it, she has a website. It's Institute of Workplace Bullying Resources.ca. If you want to look into some of that, she has some great insight. She's been in the business now, I think she said 20 some years. And it was really eye-awakening. We only had an hour to spend in each one of these breakouts, but that one really hit home to me. And also, in this, when we were up there, there is a real need for housing for seniors and workers in all of Canada. There's lots of workers overseas that would love to come here and work in our facilities, and they want to become Canadian citizens. We just don't have any place for them right at the moment, and we need to expand that. So that's pretty much my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Councillor Cermak? Again, thank you, and I'll move to Councillor Swanson, please.
I'm not going to do much more repeating. Yes, I was at the Cape Workforce Strategy. I echo the comments made from everybody in regards to the topics and the books and the keynotes. That was fantastic. On the 31st, Medicine River Watershed Alliance hosted a community presentation. It was basically about the Medicine River water quality study. The volunteers of that group led a water sample study because the reputation of the Medicine River is that it is a dirty river. The river is fed from springs and surface runoff. It is over 400 kilometers long by canoe, or 80 kilometers as the crow flies. So you know, lots of ebbs and flows. In an overhead view though, when you look down, when the river is brown, but when it reaches the confluence of the Red Deer River, it's then as blue as the Red Deer River. So they were trying to decide whether it was because of the runoff, the agriculture impacts, if it was because of does their release, their wastewater release. And so it was a very interesting for that particular group to identify that really and truthfully it is a peat bog per se, and the level of elevation from where the Medicine Lake is to where it meets the confluence is less than 30 meters. So it's basically what they described as a flat lake, so per se, very, very slow waterfall. So that was a very interesting presentation. I'm sure we'll hear more about it if you decide to partake. They'll be advertising it through their website, I'm sure. Like Councillor Cermak mentioned, we went to the ASHA, Alberta Seniors and Community Housing Association conference last week. Home for housing was the theme. The board members and the speakers were asked to contribute to their ideas to what that meant to them individually. There was many objects on the table. Even Minister Jeremy Nixon participated, and he wrote on partnerships on the board. Interesting videos to look up. How do lobsters grow? Chippewa Monkeys Fairness Experiment. Those two particular videos were quite interesting if you want to look them up. Excellent keynote speakers, 36 different breakout sessions that were not recorded. You had to be there. And of course, with the multiple topics, it was very hard to choose. Between Councillor Cermak, myself, and the CEO, Vanessa Kidd, we divided and conquered the many different topics that we could combine. Interesting takeaways. Did you know that Vienna is 60% community housing? Yes. And that we need to start the discussion with our seniors now, because when they get to a senior's home when they're 75 and 80, the comment was, are they going to want liver and onions, or are they going to want pizza and quesadillas? Right? That lifestyle that changed through those generations, which I thought was very interesting. Also, the municipal workshop last week. Of course, Easter was a filled weekend full of family and friends. So that's the end of my report.
Great, thank you very much. Questions for Councillor Swanson? Well, again, thank you, and I know we've had a very busy couple of weeks again. I appreciate the opportunity for you sponsoring me to go to the Alberta Munis conference in Edmonton. Spending a couple of weeks up in Edmonton is great to get back to normal people again here, but ultimately I learned a lot, and it really was the first day there was really spent in kind of an open format where you got to experience and you know, kind of I share the view through a different lens. So working with and hearing the comments from a number of other municipalities, mostly urban. You know, we do face the same challenges. Intermunicipal collaboration is important. Recreation, how to do more with less. Climate risk assessment and the changing dynamics of what our CAOs are approach or have to deal with, as well as local citizen engagement. So it was interesting. They were sharing many of those same things that we're going through. And I will comment that I think we're very fortunate. I'm very thankful here that we have a great working relationship with our surrounding municipalities as well. So I think we're in a good spot here. Want to keep building on that. The rest of the week went on to having more interaction with Curtis Zablocki from the RCMP. Spoke to the crowd. As always, he shared the experience they have there. And there was, within that room, even though it was an urban focus, they were still very supportive of the RCMP. So it was good to see that that same sentiment that's being echoed by rural Alberta being voiced in a room of urban people as well. So, and then the final day was taken up with the Premier, taking questions from the crowd, and of course full election mode. So it's interesting to see where those where that direction is going. I think I will say that Rachel Notley also spoke. So you know, equally warm response to each person in that room. So, but I think they were definitely showing where they're going, what they believe is important. I think it's always good to know that. I think there's always an opportunity to do the next best thing, and I think they were willing to take the leadership and do those things. So that's kind of my takeaway from that day, or from those days there, and I think it was a positive energy there. Oh, I did get a chance to get in front of at the invitation of our people from our council from Rocky Mountain House did get a chance to speak with Minister Schultz again, and I bragged up Nordegg. She was interested in Nordegg, so this is a chance to kind of highlight our West Country as well, and I think she recognizes it as a gem just like we do. So with that, that's my report. If there aren't any questions, I would look for a motion to accept council reports for information. Councillor Ratcliffe is first. All those in favor? And that's carried. Taking us down the agenda, I know we have a number of items of correspondence. Were any of those needing to be highlighted or focus on any one of those? Councillor Swanson, please.
In regards to the Alberta Municipal Affairs, the JUPA deadline that's been extended to 2025 now, that really falls how far along in the process I was wondering where we were with Wild Rose School Division. Were we nearing an agreement? Can we still press the pedal on that, or should we be maybe taking a pause till the 2025 deadline?
Mr. Emmons, please.
Thank you, Elivai. Thank you for the question, Councillor Swanson. We were actually making great progress. School division does have the person that they put in charge of that on mat leave at this time, but they did get a temporary. Our Ag and Community Services Department was working with them. The supervisor doing that, Anna Marie, has done a lot of great work on creating basically a template and bringing that forward. Our intention is to keep pressing. We've got that ball rolling, and the fear of once you stop that ball, getting it rolling again, it takes far more resources than just keep it going. I will qualify that, however, because this is an agreement on partnership. We haven't reached out to school division to see their objective. They may say, you know what, now it can wait until their full-time person comes back. But we're hoping we found the individual they put in place very knowledgeable and great to work with. So our intent is to keep it going.
Additional questions relating to correspondence or to the JUPAs? Deputy Reeve Melhoff, please.
Thank you, Reeve. West Country Family Services has been nice enough to invite yourself to the RCMP musical ride. That is something that I plan on attending with my children regardless. So if your schedule did not allow, I would be happy to attend on behalf of council. RCMP in general is near and dear to my heart, and I hope to ensure that my kids can also see its wonderful value to our community. And what does it say here? The musical ride in general has been happening since 1876. Like it's pretty awesome. So I'm looking forward to that coming to our community.
So I think that's 150 years of service. That's amazing. That's a long time, and that's a lot of lives that have been enriched and protected by that entity for sure. With that, would anybody be willing to make a motion to accept correspondence for information? Councillor Ratcliffe was the first hand I saw go up. All those in favor? And that's carried. Any notices of motion? Deputy Reeve Melhoff.
Thank you, Reeve. And my notice of motion for today is that administration set up a closed session meeting with the executive of the Rocky Ag Society Board within the second quarter 2023 in order to open dialogue on perceived partnered projects and the visions associated with current and future projects surrounding the ag community.
So that's the Rocky Ag Society?
Yes. And I can send that to you, Tracy.
Okay, thank you. Any further notices of motion? That takes us into item 11, which is a closed session item. So I would look for a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Swanson, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you all for rejoining us after our closed session. We will have no motions coming out of that closed session. And I would look to, if there's nothing further, I would look to a motion for adjournment. Councillor Northcott, all those in favor? Great, thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.